The desert wind whipped around Kael, a symphony of forgotten sorrows. He adjusted the straps of his pack, the weight of his quest heavy on his shoulders. Before him, half swallowed by the sands of time, lay the ruins of Zarkhan. Legend whispered that within those crumbling walls rested the jewel of the abyss, a gem of untold power, a gem that could rewrite history itself. Kael gripped the worn leather of his father's journal. Its pages held the key to navigating the labyrinthine ruins and claimed the jewel. But more importantly, it held the memory of his father, a man driven by the same yearning that now consumed Kael's heart, to mend the past, to reclaim what was lost. The sun beat down on Kael's back as he tightened his sword belt. Doubt gnawed at him. Was he chasing a fool's dream? The jewel of the abyss was just a legend, a whisper in the wind. What if he was walking into a tomb, not for the past, but for himself? He looked towards the ruins, their shadows stretching out like grasping claws. There was no turning back. The entrance to Zarkhan gaped open like a skeletal maw. The air grew heavy, thick with the silence of centuries. Kael took a deep breath and stepped across the threshold, the crunch of sand beneath his boots the only sound in the stillness. The light from the setting sun struggled to penetrate the gloom within. The walls were adorned with faded murals, their colors bleached by time. They depicted a grand civilization, proud and powerful. Kael ran his hand along the cold stone, feeling the echoes of a forgotten greatness. These weren't just stories in his father's journal. They were once vibrantly alive. As he ventured deeper, a chill ran down his spine. He could feel eyes on him, watching from the shadows. The silence wasn't empty. It was filled with whispers, with the weight of countless forgotten dreams and regrets. The air grew colder, the scent of dust and decay clinging to the back of his throat. He was not alone in this tomb of memories. Kael's heart pounded as he entered a vast chamber. The floor had crumbled away, leaving only a series of stone platforms precariously suspended over a dizzying chasm. One misstep meant certain doom. This was the first trial of Zarkhan. He consulted his father's journal, his brow furrowing as he deciphered the faded script. "The path is not always clear," he muttered, tracing the worn lines with his fingertip. "Trust in Aruk's wisdom, and the way will reveal itself." Aruk, the legendary founder of Zarkhan, was said to have designed the ruins as a test for those seeking the jewel's power. Taking a shaky breath, Kael stepped onto the first platform. It groaned under his weight, the stone crumbling at the edges. The chasm yawned below, promising oblivion. He moved carefully, testing each step before putting his full weight down. The wind howled around him, threatening to rip him from his precarious perch and send him plummeting into the abyss. He clung to Aruk's words like a lifeline, his gaze darting from one crumbling platform to the next, searching for the pattern, for the safe passage through this deadly puzzle. The first trial, his resolve tempered by danger and his spirit lifted by the echoes of a forgotten king. The air crackled with energy as Kael stepped into the final chamber. Before him, bathed in an ethereal glow emanating from a pedestal in the center of the room, rested the jewel of the abyss. It pulsed with an inner light, a beacon of forgotten hopes and dreams. But guarding the jewel was a creature of stone and fire, a golem animated by Aruk's ancient magic. Its eyes blazed with an infernal light, and the heat from its molten body rolled across the chamber in suffocating waves. The guardian roared, a sound that shook the very foundations of the ruins, and raised its arm, a weapon of smouldering rock aimed at Kael's heart. Kael drew his sword, its familiar weight offering a small comfort against the terror that threatened to consume him. This was it, the final test. But this wasn't just about reclaiming the past, it was about proving his own strength, his own worthiness. He charged, the golem's fiery breath searing the air around him. The clash of metal against molten rock echoed through the chamber, a desperate symphony of survival. The battle raged. Kael danced around the golem's attacks, each swing of his sword a testament to years of training, each near miss a reminder of the fragility of life. The heat was unbearable, his skin stinging with every blast of the golem's fiery breath. Despair threatened to overwhelm him. He was outmatched, outmaneuvered, but giving up was not an option. He had come too far, sacrificed too much. He thought of his father, of the pain in his eyes, of the shared dream that had driven them both to this point. Adrenaline surged through his veins, fueled by grief and determination. He noticed a pattern in the golem's movements, a slight hesitation in its attacks whenever it drew power from the runes etched into the floor. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but it was all he had. Kael baited the golem, drawing it closer to the pedestal where the jewel pulsed with its otherworldly light. As the creature drew breath for another fiery blast, he acted. He lunged, his sword aimed not at the golem but at the runes beneath its feet. The chamber exploded in blinding light as the runes shattered. The golem roared in pain, its body contorting as its connection to Arak's magic was severed. It stumbled, then collapsed, its fiery form extinguishing into dust and embers. Kael, battered and bruised, stumbled towards the pedestal. He reached out, his fingers trembling with exhaustion and anticipation, and grasped the jewel of the abyss. A wave of energy surged through him. He saw flashes of the past, not as distant memories, but as visceral experiences. He saw his father, not in his final moments, but as a young man full of life and hope. He saw the mistakes, the regrets, the moments that had led him to this point, but there was no pain, no bitterness, only understanding. Kael emerged from the ruins of Zarkhan, blinking against the rising sun. He held the jewel of the abyss in his hand, but it felt different. It no longer pulsed with the promise of altering the past. It had shown him that the past was not something to be feared or undone, but a foundation upon which to build a future. He looked back at the ruins, at the silent testament to a lost civilization. He had come seeking the power to change his past, but he had found something far more valuable: the strength to accept it. The jewel hadn't granted him the ability to turn back time. Instead, it had empowered him to move forward. He took a deep breath, the desert air filling his lungs with the promise of a new day. He had a long journey ahead, but for the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of peace. He wasn't haunted by the ghosts of the past, but guided by their memory. He was free.